Hi sixth graders, this is Mrs. Gall. Today we're going to talk through solving multi-step inequalities. Go ahead and get your notebook open and title it Multi-Step Inequalities. When you're ready to continue, press play. Ran out of room a little bit there. Okay, here we go, you guys. Just like with our 1 and 2 step inequalities, reminder that this is very similar to solving equations. The only difference is we see a different type of sign, and we also can graph our answer. We also want to think back to 1 and 2 when we're talking through 1 step and 2 step. Reminder that when we're multiplying and dividing by a negative, that will flip our sign. So we just want to be aware of that as we're solving, because that also applies to our multi-step inequalities. All right, you guys, here's our first example we're going to try today. 4 times the quantity of x minus 3 is greater than 6. So we're going to see parentheses a lot more with multi-step inequalities, but we're going to solve this just like we would an equation. So we're going to start by getting rid of those parentheses by using distributive property, taking 4 times x and 4 times negative 3. That gives us 4x minus 12 is greater than 6. Okay, now it's a 2-step inequality. So to get x by itself, we're going to start by moving the piece that's on the same side as x, but the one that's furthest away on that same side. So that's going to be our minus 12. And in order to move it to the other side, we're going to add 12 to both sides. That cancels out my negative and positive 12 on the left. We're left with 4x is greater than 18. Now to get x by itself, we're going to divide both sides by 4, because 4 times x, the opposite of timesing would be dividing. We get x is greater than 4, let's see, be 4.5. You can either write that as a fraction or a decimal, because 4 goes into 16. 4 times, and we'd have 2 left over, which is 2 out of 4 is a half. We could then graph that, our answer, by creating a number line with 3 numbers. 4.5, could go by ones or halves, 3.5, 5.5. Open circle, because we do not have an or equal to. X is greater than, so we're going to shade up towards all values greater than 4.5. Reminder, we can always check our work by going in and finding a value that would fit in there for x, plugging it into our original inequality and seeing if it stays true. All right, you guys, let's try another multi-step. 3 times the quantity e plus 2, close the parentheses, is less than or equal to 12. Very similar to our last problem. We want to start by using distributive property to remove those parentheses. Distribute the 3 to both pieces inside. We get 3e plus 6 is less than or equal to 12. Now it's a 2-step inequality. We start with the side that has the variable and move the piece that's furthest from the variable on that side. Plus 6 is what it looks like I'm trying to get rid of. To remove a plus 6, we're going to subtract 6 from both sides. That cancels out my 6's on the left. We're left with 3e is less than or equal to 6. Since it's 3 times e on the left, to get rid of that 3, we're going to divide by 3. That gives us e is less than or equal to 2. We could graph our answer by making a number line. The number from our inequality goes in the center, 1 less and 1 more on either side. Open or closed dot here? Closed, because e is less than or equal to. Since e is less than or equal to, we're going to shade towards the numbers that are smaller than 2, towards 1, and so on. All right, you guys, we're just going to keep trying more of these. If you're feeling pretty confident, you can pause and then just kind of watch as I walk through the work to see if you got the same answer, or you can continue following along with me if you're more comfortable that way. Okay, let's try this. 3 is less than -4 times x plus 3. Okay, we're going to start by using distributive property. This time it's in -4 that we're distributing, so just be aware of that as we multiply. The 3 stays the same on the left. -4 times x, -4x, -4 times 3, -12. From there, it's a two-step inequality. Go to the side that has our variable. Start by moving the piece that's further away from the variable, -12. To move it to both sides, we add 12. We're left with -4x on the right and 15 on the left. To get x by itself, we have -4 times x, so we need to divide by a -4. Divide by a negative. What happens when we divide by a negative? Our sign flips from a less than to a greater than. We're left with x just on the right. -4 goes into 15 3 times, that would be 12, with 3/4 left over. That would be a negative answer because we divided a positive by a negative. -3 and 3/4 is greater than x. Remember, when we're multiplying or dividing by a negative, that's when that causes the sign flip. To graph that, our number from our answer is in the center. We can either go up or down by wholes or fourths. So I could go -4 would be a fourth smaller, and then -3 and 2/4 or a half would be larger. Open circle because it does not include that, and x should be less than, because I have the less than sign facing the x, so I'm going to go down towards the -4 there. Alright, you guys, let's try a few more of these to make sure you're feeling comfortable with all those different situations that we can see. Let's try some division here. Let's try w minus 4 over 5 is greater than 3. How are we going to start by getting w by itself? Well, we can't subtract. We can't look at the subtract 4 piece first because we have to get rid of this 5 first. It's the part that's a little bit further away. So since we're dividing by 5, to get rid of it, we need to times by 5. That cancels those 5s out. We're left with w minus 4 is greater than 15. Now we can get w by itself by adding 4 to each side, and we get w is greater than 19. Remember, you can always go back in and check your work. Find a value that is greater than 19 and go plug it in to see if it'll work. Let's say I pick 24. I know that's greater than 19. 24 minus 4 is 20, and 20 divided by 5 is 4. Is 4 greater than 3? Yes, so I know I'm correct. Remember, for graphing, I'm not going to go through the whole graph. Your numbers should have been 18, 19, and 20. Open circle because it was not or equal to, and w was greater, so we should have shaded up towards 20. Let's try a few more together. 5a minus 8 is less than 4 times the quantity a minus 3. So we're just going to start building and adding more in there. So we still see parentheses, so I'm going to take care of that distributive property first before we move on to combining like terms. 4 times a is 4a, and 4 times -3 is -12. My left-hand side, I did not have any parentheses or terms to combine, so that stays the same. When I'm talking through equations, I always tell my students I like to move the smallest variable first when I have variables on both sides. So my smallest variable is 4a. So to move it to the other side, I see it's a positive 4a. I'm going to subtract it, because when we're just moving terms side to side, that's when we're adding and subtracting them. We don't multiply and divide until all those terms are together. Okay, so that's going to leave us with negative 12 on the right. 1a is what I get when I take 5a minus 4a, and 1a is the same thing as a. And then we can subtract that 8. So now I've got all my variables over here. Let's get rid of this negative 8, the constant, and take it to the other side. It's a negative 8 right now, so to move it to the other side, we're going to add 8. That leaves us with a is less than negative 4. To graph that, we should have negative 4 in the center, negative 5, and negative 3. Remember to pay close attention to your negative number line. Open or close circle? Open. A is less than negative 4, so you're going to shade, down towards values that are less than negative 4. All right, you guys, I want you to try a few more on your own before I finish up this lesson. Why don't you try this one on your own? 2p plus 5 is greater than or equal to 3 times the quantity p minus 6. Go ahead and solve that on your own as well as graph it. Press play when you're ready to see me walk through the answer quickly. All right, you guys, so I'm going to take my 3 and distribute it to both pieces inside the parentheses. That gives me 3p minus 18. 2p plus 5 stayed the same on the left. Now I start by moving. I like to focus on my smallest variable first, which was a 2p. To get rid of it on this side, I'm going to subtract it, and I need to subtract it to both sides. That cancels it out on the left. I'm left with 5. 1p is what I'm left with on the right, which is the same thing as p, minus 18. Now I've got my variables all here on my right, so I need to get rid of this minus 18. To get rid of the minus 18, we add it to both sides. That leaves us with p on the right, and 18 plus 5 gives us 23 on the left. If I were to graph this, 23 is the center, 22 and 24 go on either side. It is a closed-in circle because it has the or equal to, so it could be 23. Focus on your variable. P has the less than sign facing it, so that means I need to shade down towards 22. There's my answer along with my graph. All right, you guys, let's try one more. Let's try this one. M divided by negative 5 minus 7 is greater than or equal to 4. Pause and try this one on your own. Press play when you're ready to see the answer. All right, you guys, the first thing you want to do is add 7 to both sides to get rid of that piece that's a little bit further away from the m. That leaves you with m over negative 5 on the right, or on the left, and 11 on the right. Then m divided by 5, the opposite would be timesing by negative 5. Oh, did you hear what I just said? Timesing by negative 5. When we're timesing by a negative, what's going to happen to our sign? It's going to flip. So now we have m on the left is less than or equal to negative 55 on the right. If I go to graph that, negative 55 is in the center, negative 54 is a little bit larger, negative 56 is a little bit smaller. I do a shaded in circle for the or equal to. M is less than, so I shade down towards negative 56. All right, you guys, that is all for our multi-step inequalities. Remember, it is very similar to solving equations. The thing to remember is when you're done, you just might need to graph. And the other thing to remember is when multiplying or dividing by a negative, that sign needs to flip. Otherwise, our processes are very similar. Check in with your teacher if you have any questions.